All right, 99.9 Punk World Radio FM. You guys already know what time it is. And right here we are joined by a legendary band. They've been doing their thing since the mid-1990s, straight out of San Diego, California. West Coast boys, that's what's up. We got Cigar right here live on Facebook, YouTube, and of course the radio station airwaves as well. How are you guys doing this evening?
Great.
Doing great.
Doing well.
I got to say, first and foremost, guys, thank you so much for just giving us a bit of your time here this evening. I've been a huge fan of you guys for so many years, so just thank you so much for your time, man. It is such an honor to speak with you three.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
Really nice.
But I know you guys are very busy individuals, so I'm not going to keep you too long here this evening. But I got to take you back to the beginning of this amazing band where you guys actually formed in the 1990s that was actually discovered by Fletcher of Pennywise. I was wondering, what is the origin story behind the band? And, of course, how did you ultimately get connected with Fletcher?
We were hanging out with Bob Becker from Fearless Records. I think 30 Foot Fall set that up, right?
Yeah. We were just playing local shows in Eugene, Oregon, and surrounding towns, and we ended up playing a show with 30 Foot Fall. And while we were playing, this was before everybody had cell phones, so while we were playing, one of the band members, maybe Rubio, ran out to the payphone and called Bob Becker and said, "Hey, you got to check this band out." And so after the show, he said, "We want you guys to play more shows with us. Finish the run, give your demo to this Fearless Records, all this other good stuff." So we ended up sending the demo cassette down to Bob Becker, and Bob Becker was hanging out with Fletcher. They were just driving around, and Fletcher said, "If you don't sign these guys, I'm going to sign these guys." So
and then Bob told us that. Bob was like, "Yeah, Fletcher was telling me if I don't sign you, then he was going to do it." And we were all kind of like looking at each other. That sounds cool. And then Fletcher called me out of the blue. I think I was going through some breakup or something. I was sleeping on my mom's floor, and he called me up, and I was asleep. It was probably like 1 p.m. He's like, "Hey man, it's Fletcher Pennywise," and I was like, "What?" Like back then, we had no access to Fletcher from Pennywise, so I thought somebody was bullshitting me. And then he just kept talking, and he knew what he was talking about. And I'm like, okay, this is probably really Fletcher from Pennywise. And he was just said, "I think you guys should be on Theologian Records. I'll produce it, and if you don't take, I'll send you a bunch of stuff to listen to." And wait, hang on, he put me on hold for like a really long time, and I was just kind of like waiting. And then all of a sudden, he comes back and goes, "You're on the Warped Tour." He put us on some like big stage, like on that phone call. So I was like, we were impressed. Like, all right. He just stuck us on the like one of the main stages on the Warped Tour, and was it 98 in Portland? So I called Robbie. I'm like, "Dude, Fletcher called. We're playing the Warped Tour 98 in Portland or whatever." So that's kind of how it started. And then we went down there and did a record with them. That was crazy.
And when you said a few moments ago you were laying on the floor, like just dealing with a breakup, man, I don't know, man. That to me sounds like the best breakup depression tour ever.
Yes. That was a good one, yeah.
And I bet you that ex-girlfriend is kicking her ass now because like literally it went from like her dumping you and then probably mere hours later you being actually signed Punk Rock Stars, man.
Hell yeah, man. She could have waited out those 30 years for me to finally get on Fat Records. And then she really missed out on those last 3 decades.
And speaking of the Warped Tour, man, since we're actually just on the topic of that and you brought that up, what was it like actually being a part of the Warped Tour, especially in its prime, man? Because I've heard some crazy stories that just the background of Warped Tour, a lot of crazy stuff happens, man.
Yeah, did anything crazy happen?
I think just for us to go from these local show stages to then being like one of the first bands of the day on the main stage at Warped Tour, I think just that experience for us was the crazy aspect of it. And then being able to meet people and hang out with people backstage and see these people up close, at least from my perspective, that was all very new.
Well, you have one of the craziest like Fletcher stories from that Warped Tour ever. Don't forget that.
Oh yeah, that's true, John.
That was pretty funny. Yeah, the 99 Warped Tour. Fletcher put us on again, and I think
That was down
maybe
in San Diego, Del Mar.
San Diego, because we actually started in Oregon and then we moved to San Diego right when we got on Theologian and met Fletcher. And so yeah, we were making our way out to that Del Mar, you said, and then we didn't anticipate the insane traffic. It's 1999. We don't have smartphones, and we just thought, okay, let's go there now. We kept rehearsing like up to the moment, and then we jumped into traffic that was just like bumper to bumper and not moving. And we're just like looking at our watches and stressing out. You can't call anyone, there's no cell phones. And we just crawled all the way there. And we were barely there by the time we were super late, actually, like an hour late or something.
Yeah,
And we get to the gate and we're telling there's a girl with a walkie-talkie, and we're like, oh, where's Cigar? We're supposed to play. And she's like, I don't see on the list. So you got to get out of the way. And there's other bands honking and loading up behind us because everyone's late because of traffic. I'm like, no, you got to let us in. We're playing this. I swear we're playing. And she's like, you're not on the list. I can't let you in. And then Pennywise, for some reason, is coming out at that moment. And Fletcher's like, what the fuck are you doing? You guys are late. What are you doing? I got you on the Warped Tour and you're late. It's supposed to be an hour ago. And we're like, we couldn't. It was traffic, Fletcher. We couldn't get in. He's all, get the fuck in there. And we're like, they won't let us in. And he goes, let Cigar in, to the person in charge. And I can't let them in, sir. They're not on the list. And he's like, let them in. Who are you talking to? And she's calling someone on the radio. And he goes, let me talk to him. She's like, I can't let you in. And he goes, give me the radio. And he just takes it. He goes, let Cigar in now. This is Fletcher. Cigar is coming in now. And he goes, go in now. Go in. And the gate was open. So we just went in. And then he said, get to the tent. So I ran to the tent. I'm looking everywhere. I find some tent. Cigar is waiting for me in the van. I run in, and it's like Ice-T and M&M's in there, and the Black Eyed Peas. Like every artist is in there getting hooked up on like internet and trying to like early dial-up stuff they had set up for artists. Like Ice-T's got a big bouncer security dude next to him. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, oh my God, dude, everyone's in here. Blink-182, everybody. And then I'm trying to find, what's the dude's name that ran the Warped Tours?
Oh, Kevin Lyman.
Kevin Lyman. I'm trying to find Kevin. Find Kevin. He's got a big like cowboy hat. Go find him. So I'm looking for Kevin. I see a dude with a cowboy hat. And I'm kind of like waiting my turn. And then all of a sudden, Stuart, who's passed away now, but he was the stage manager for Pennywise forever. He's an awesome dude. Real scrappy dude too. Like a no bullshit kind of intimidating dude. He gets off the phone and he goes, everybody listen up. And like Eminem, Ice-T, everyone's turning around like, what the fuck? Because some guy's like yelling, listen to me. And he goes, I was just talking to Fletcher. He said if Cigar doesn't play, he's going to kill everyone in this room. And everyone's like, what the fuck? And then Kevin Lyman's all, God damn it, what the fuck? Who the fuck do you think he is? He goes, who's Cigar? Where's Cigar? And I'm all, and he goes, you're on it. And he told us what time we're on and told me just like, be there. And I ran out. I'm like, dude, that was so crazy. Anyway, that was like, us getting to know Fletcher in the early days.
And especially actually just like being there, like this is obviously in the near the beginning of your guys' careers, and you have like every celebrity looking at you in that moment, man. Like it must have been one of those like, oh shit, like.
Yeah, they were like, who are these assholes?
But also, aside from the Warped Tour and whatnot, you guys also had the opportunity to appear on a skateboarding VHS tape by Toy Machine titled "Jump Off a Building" during Chris Sen's part. I was wondering if you can actually tell us a bit more about that old school skateboarding tape, and of course, what was it like just being able to be a part of that legendary skate tape alongside so many other skateboarders?
I feel like I'm a ball hog right now because that was through me as well. I'd have to take the mic on that. But Chris Sen is the one who put us in there. A friend of mine from high school. We grew up in Grass Valley together. And he put my previous band on a couple PAL videos. And then we were called Circus Tents. And then when I got Cigar going, he stuck us on. I said, hey, I got another band, man. He's like, send me some shit. I'll put it on. We're like, yes. So he put Way to the World on that Toy Machine video. And I don't know, you got anything else to say about that, Rami?
Oh, there's still people to this day that say that that's where they heard us. So for especially at the time, for us, it was a huge deal to get that kind of exposure and be introduced to different audiences that way.
When I was younger, that was actually where I first heard you guys as well. I remember being in my local skate shop and they were actually playing that video. I remember, like, obviously it's different nowadays, but they had a big old, like, tube TV mounted to the ceiling and they were playing that to try and sell the Toy Machine, the Toy Machine skateboards and whatnot, man. And I remember hearing your guys' music. I was like, yo, that's killer. I got to get a board and I got to skateboard to this shit.
Nice.
Cool. That it's also cool for us. We ended up becoming friends with our longtime like tour bro driver, takes photos for us. He's like part of the Cigar family, Rudy, who happened to work for Tumieto, the parent company of Toy Machine, and we just saw him skateboarding somewhere in San Diego, and we just approached him and we started talking, and he's like, oh, I know your song. It's one of my favorite songs in the entire video. And so he's still with us to this day. We're going to meet him out in Europe this coming in July here. So that helped us create all kinds of bonds and friendships, and it was just really invaluable for us.
It says a lot about skateboarding too. The community is pretty tight.
And also as well, on April 27th of 99, you guys actually released the phenomenal 14-track debut studio album titled Speed is a Relative. I was wondering if you can actually tell us a bit more about this amazing album. And of course, is it still available to be streamed or purchased today in 2023?
It's definitely available to be streamed, but right now it's out of print. I think we've been talking about possibilities to re-release it, but back in 2019, I think, or maybe 2018, our original label, Theologian, had repressed or finally pressed the first versions on vinyl, and then that sold out pretty quick, but the CDs haven't been available for a long time. But I don't know, I think that was definitely, at the time in that era, we were writing a lot of music and playing a lot, practicing very religiously, playing shows, and that album pretty organically came together and evolved. There was a couple songs, like the song Captain. The music was already written before I had joined the band, and then when I joined the band, I wrote the lyrics for that. Then there's other songs, like Long Run was the first song that I actually wrote to try out for the band. And so there's just a lot of history that anchors. Obviously, with that first album, I think it really helped define our direction. And then as we approach the second album, there's something inherent to that sound that really is identifiable to us. So it's kind of like this core sound that we still relate to.
And if I'm not mistaken as well, Fletcher actually did production on Speed as well. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's true. We went down and practiced in the Pennywise rehearsal space a day or two before we actually went to the studio, and so that was a crazy experience for us to be able to use their gear and work on the pre-production for that. And then when we got into the studio, that was a ton of fun, but also nerve-wracking as hell because Fletcher can be unpredictable. He's
a nut.
Was there any times during the production of that album that he actually got a little unpredictable, or was it smooth sailing for once actually for this album?
No way.
Let's go ahead and hit the caps lock YES. Very much had a couple sketchy, crazy moments. He locked me in a bathroom and he was gonna punch a hole in the wall and shoot a fire extinguisher in there and suck out all the oxygen, and I pretty much freaked out big time, and like I started punching holes in the wall with a broom handle,
screaming bloody murder. And I tried to tell. I walked up to Fletcher and said, "Hey, Rami's. It's a tight space. He's a little claustrophobic." And Fletcher swings that butcher knife like just right at my face. Back up! Back up! So I'm like, Jesus Christ! I'm running. We're like, Rami, we're trying to get you out, man, but we couldn't even get near the door. But then Rami just broke his way out with a broom handle through a wall. It was going right by Fletcher's face. Boom! Boom! Fletcher's going, Jesus, stop, Rami! Stop! Just keeps going. And we're all going, holy shit! We're all watching it. And then afterwards, when the beautiful bathroom is all destroyed in the lounge of Stella number 2, a studio that Fletcher was co-owner of. He thought Rami was really punk for destroying his way out of the wall, and they had some heart-to-heart while we all waited out in the van. And then Rami was different from then on, and Rami's a lot harder to deal with now, and I blame Fletcher. But we won't get into that.
And he probably doesn't go to the bathroom at the studio either. That definitely sounds like you see a bathroom in the studio, you get a little PTSD probably.
Yeah, I definitely know there's certain areas to mark all the exits and opportunities to escape before you're spending too much time with Fletcher.
If Fletcher's in the studio, make sure you get the floor plan before you go in, so that way you know every exit and you actually have a map to it right there.
It's really actually good advice, yeah.
It's good advice.
But also as well, going into today, you guys are actually currently signed to Fat Chords. I was wondering if you can actually tell us a bit more about that record deal, and of course, like, what is it like actually being signed to Fat Mike of NoFX's label?
That is definitely a dream come true for us. I think we grew up in the era where Fat Records was truly monumental in shaping the direction of the scene, and so for us, I think it's something we've been wanting since the very first album. But for us, the way it unfolded, a couple of years ago, I ended up hanging out with Fat Mike at a barbecue in Portland, Oregon, and we just kind of hit it off, hung out for a really long time, and then eventually sent him a version of the album, and he liked it and said, let's talk about this. So, and I think as history has it, Fat doesn't really do like actual signings. They're just handshake verbal deals. So that's kind of how things unfolded for us as well. And he said, let's put out this album. And so from one minute it had no label, and then all of a sudden we're on Fat Records. And I think to this day, from my standpoint, anytime I see that logo and our name associated with it, it's still just mind-boggling to me.
And I gotta say, it's definitely sad as well just to actually hear about NoFX actually, just doing their farewell tour, and that's it. They gave us years of amazing music, man, but I was hoping for at least a few more years and a few more tours. But I'm definitely happy, and congratulations to them on their retirement as well.
Yeah, they've obviously put in their time and certainly made their legendary mark on the scene.
And also as well, in 2014, you guys actually played Amnesia Rockfest out here in Quebec, Canada, alongside Blink-182 and many other bands. I was wondering if you can actually tell us a bit more about that particular festival, and did you get the opportunity to interact with Blink before or after your guys' performance?
I think that festival, we had actually been on a long, unplanned hiatus that just started evolving from around 2006 and it lasted till 2013. And then we played a reunion show at Music for Cancer near Montreal. And then at that festival, the guy that owned Rockfest came and asked us to play. And so then we ended up coming back in 2014. As far as interacting with certain bands, there's definitely bands that like I ended up watching NoFX from on stage, and then while I was on stage, the guys from Blink-182 were on the stage, but I didn't talk to them and interact with them. I don't know those guys, but they end up in some of these situations where you're like, oh, that's somebody I've seen on TV for many years.
I was on another paid tour as a performer in Broken Bells, and we were touring the U.S. at the time, and then they all had to wait. It's a pretty big entourage. It's like a couple of tour buses and a big semi, and everyone had to wait for me in Philadelphia while I flew up, played Rockfest, and then raced back to the airport to fly back and resume the tour I was on. But because of that, I didn't want to screw anything up, so I got to the airport really early, and I got my coffee. I barely had any sleep. I just played Rockfest, and I left Cigar back there. I just had to hurry back. And I was sitting there with my coffee, and I thought, okay, I made it. This is cool. I'm going to make it back in time. And I looked up, and the only other person in my gate was Henry Rollins. So I was like, oh, shit. Should I say something to Henry Rollins? I don't think I've ever met Henry Rollins. And I was such a, like anyone who plays this music probably had their big moment with Black Flag. I mean, it was a huge deal for me. Black Flag was like kind of like my gateway into punk rock in the 80s. But anyway, I went up and talked to him. It was like, hey, man, I have to at least say hello. I'm just such a fan. I'm here playing. And he was kind of looking at me like, oh, boy, like, great. This guy's going to sit next to me. And then so I told myself, if we don't start flowing within like 30 seconds, I'll just peace out and be like, nice to meet you. But then I think I asked him the right couple questions. And then he just started answering me with a lot of details. I'm like, you mind if I sit down? He's like, he pulled his shit out of the way, and I sat with him. We just talked for like a half hour. And so that was really cool. And he's an interesting dude. That was awesome.
We actually have a user submitted question here from RS70UGHC. They actually said what was your very first live shows you ever actually attended before you guys actually joined Cigar? So I'm guessing I'm assuming he's meaning before your very first concert you ever attended.
What was yours, Rami? I got mine. Like first thing that comes to mind.
Mine was either 1985 or 1986. It was a band out of Virginia Beach, and they were called Unseen Force. Just raging punk stuff. I think you can find it on YouTube now too. But I'd never even heard the band. I just knew it was a punk show, and back then it was like our scene. It was the era when everyone rode a skateboard and everybody listened to punk, and so the venue was totally packed. It was just at a deli, and they just cleared out the tables and had the stage in the corner where normally they'd have someone playing a lute or something like that. And then they just had this punk show at night, and it was just completely chaotic. It was the first pit I ever saw. It was the first live bands. Not even like
no
any
internet.
genre. Yeah, that was the first that was the first concert entirely. It's not just punk concert, but it was just that was very much. I was totally hooked after that. That's just such undeniable energy.
Yeah, my buddy Wedge that I ended up starting my first punk band with in the late 80s. He was telling me, you got to go to this punk show, man. There's going to be a pit. And I was like, a pit? He's like, yeah, it's just like people are like in it and just like swirling around. It's crazy. And you like fall down and everyone kind of like picks you up. You just keep going and they're diving off the stage into the pit. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know, dude. And he's like, no, trust me, it's awesome. You got to go. But I don't even think I've been to a concert other than like catching some local band at the fair or something. I was 15. And I went to the show, and it was Youth of Today and Bold, like OG straight edge hardcore. And it was the gnarliest show. It was just, I was just like, oh my God. And I didn't want to play sports, and everybody wanted me to because I was like 6'5" in high school. And once I went to that show, I was like, okay, these are my people. This is what I'm going to do. And so it really gave me, I feel like I had a purpose as soon as I went to a punk show. So that was like the main one. That was my first show.
Wow.
What about you, Jonathan? You haven't said much.
I'm trying to think. The first punk shows I guess I went to were all local shows in Nebraska where I grew up that I was either just went to or played in my own bands. And I remember I'm trying to think. I think I saw like Mr. T Experience and Alligator Gun and All You Can Eat and some of those bands when they'd come through.
I used to watch Mr. T Experience live too.
Yeah.
I watched Green Day open for him.
Oh man, that's awesome. But yeah, Neurosis, Avail, stuff like that. I saw all those bands, but I feel like the first stuff I saw that made me want to be a part of it were local bands. There were a couple of local bands who were just amazing. And I still think.
And I can say, man, local punk bands are the best crowds in my honest opinion, man, because they're the most hungriest bands. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in a few mosh pits, whether it's big bands at big arenas, and I've been to mosh pits in like just local venues with local bands, and I'm telling you, the local mosh pits are more ruthless.
That's true. That's very true.
And also as well. September 9th of 2022, you guys actually released your most recent album, which is a 10-track album titled The Visitor. I was wondering if you can actually tell us a bit more about this most recently released album, and of course, where can we snag ourselves a copy of it today?
Well, I think the first place I would send people is to fatrecords.com. You can get, I think vinyl's still available, CDs if you have that flavor, and then you can get it on all sorts of streaming platforms. But that album kind of started as a seed from the reunion shows that we played that we mentioned in 2013 with Music for Cancer, and then Rockfest after that. And then we realized how much fun we had doing it again, and then we thought, well, all right, it's time to write some new music. So little by little, we live in different cities. I live in Portland, Oregon. John, at the time, I think you're maybe San Francisco or maybe LA. So we're just moving around different spots, but we would meet up and just start working on core ideas and riffs and then develop those into songs. So it did take some time to put together, but little by little, we kind of had this collection of ideas and then decided like we're going to really invest the time. And so I started flying down to John's house in Southern California and really working on finishing the new album. And then as we were working on it and creating these ideas, we'd also had working with our old bass player who was very busy with family and other life obligations. Obviously we're adults, so we just have these life priorities change. And so we parted ways with our old bass player and thought we just have to keep going and keep writing. So in the meantime, the two of us kept going, and then eventually John had played in other projects with Jonathan and invited him into the circle. And I think the timing in which he joined us did not leave a lot of time to write his parts.
It was crazy. He's seriously, it came right down to where Rami and I were booked in the studio with Darian Rundle, who engineered the first Speed is Relative album. We were at his house up in, Lake Arrowhead?
Yeah.
And I was calling Hishke and I was like, dude, we need you to play bass on this shit. Jason can't do it. We officially had the conversation. It's just time where he can't keep doing this because he doesn't have time to develop it. And we were literally tracking. And Hishke's like, okay, I can. You were super. Hishke was busy with all this other shit. And he finally found a little window where he could show up. And then he like sits in the hot seat between all of us. And he's just like throwing down stuff on the fly. He had a couple things he worked out. And a lot of that record is him just like on the fly, just making up crazy shit, like right on the spot. And all of us going, yes, do that. Holy shit, do that again. Can you kind of go like up here? And he'd be like, woo. We're like, yes.
And there was the part where locking in this groove, and we're like, wait, what are you playing? And he showed us what we were playing. Go, oh no, it's more like this. And so he's like learning the grooves in the studio.
Yeah, because if you don't play this kind of music, because John's whole I never called you John before. Hishke's whole repertoire before this was a lot of crazy, mathy, weirdy, artsy, insane shit, and even like even the full spectrum of from pop to indie to chaos to math rock or whatever. But there's those parts in this kind of music in Cigar where it's got like a ding 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 ding. You know, it's kind of like sort of like our machine work, the way we like move forward with the fast beat. And all of us were telling him he was trying to do everything my foot was doing, like you know, with his fingers, and we're like, hang on. There's a really simple, just like do 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 do, and he was going like sarcastically do 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 like that do 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 do. We're like, yeah, like that. It sounds rad. He's like kind of shrugging, like whatever. So we found it. We found our sweet spot, and so Jonathan made up all his own bass lines and played all that crazy bass shit on the album. He's the guy.
And then before we go to play the live shows, you guys have to listen back to the album to go, what did I play on the album?
Yeah, I was kind of guilty of that too. Yeah, just making up on the spot and then going, what did we do on the album?
Yeah, I mean, I've never played half those songs straight through.
Right.
Besides practicing them for the shows coming up.
Right.
You know,
we still haven't.
We never even practiced a few of them. I just would figure them out in the studio, you know.
Yeah.
So
and then you have to go do it live, and then you go, oh shit, we made this a little bit hard for ourselves.
Yeah.
Noodly shit.
Yeah, and like this last Canadian tour that we did, we didn't even rehearse beforehand. We just showed up, and at sound check, we're like just kind of right back in the pocket. And so there's times where that chaos is great, and then there's times where it's like, is this gonna work?
Yeah.
That's true.
And definitely by the sounds of it, because one of my follow-up questions was actually going to be like, John, was it difficult for you to actually learn the classics? But just how they explained your, like, just how you learned the bass in general and how you perform on bass, I'm pretty sure just that they answered my question for me, man. It was probably very easy for you to actually learn the classic Cigar songs, man, because if you can play bass like that, man.
I would say no. It somehow it's easier. It's often easier when you're playing something that you came up with. At least I find it that way. It makes sense to my brain a little more than something I'm learning sometimes. And with Jason's parts, Jason Torbert, the former bass player, his parts are so good and so well thought out and so locked in on that first record. I didn't want to do really anything but do them the way he did them. You know what I mean? I wanted to be very true to it. And in order to do that, it wasn't in my wheelhouse either stylistically or, you know, I wasn't that familiar with the record when I started learning that stuff, the Speed is Relative stuff. I just knew I liked it. And it took a while to get that stuff down. And there's a lot of little details, you know, throughout Cigar's music that are still kind of hard to keep track of, even 4 years later, you know? So, but his parts are incredible. And the blueprint he laid out for the role of this instrument in this band is really amazing. It's really special. So
It's cool for us too, because both Jonathan and Torbert are aware of each other's playing and always had a lot of respect for each other's playing. They tell me about it, you know, like, man, what he's doing there, that's insane. I never would have thought of that. And then Jason heard the new record and he's like, man, some of that bass shit is just unbelievable. I love what he's doing. And but I think Jonathan's done a really good job of keeping kind of a through line from the first record to the next one. Like, he's doing it his own way, but he's acknowledging the kind of framework that Jason set up with the bass playing. There's like a Cigar sound in the way that Jason plays, and I feel like Jonathan's really represented it well on the new record while totally doing his own thing as well. So I think for Cigar fans, it's kind of it's great. There's both of them are in there fully represented.
it was pretty nerve-wracking before the first few shows because I felt like those were really big shoes to fill, and I was actually kind of afraid of the public opinion on my take on it, you know, because Cigar is such a celebrated, and, you know, fans of the band are very passionate and very dedicated, and, you know, I was afraid that if I missed like even just one note in some of those parts,
They're gonna go
no, and yeah, call me out. So far so good, I think.
But I have to ask, guys, what is next for Cigar? Because obviously, I know we touched on like we touched on the new album. Obviously, we touched on the classic stuff. But is there anything we happen to miss during this evening's interview? Anything else you guys still want to talk about or promote? Well, we still got you here live on 99.9 FM this evening.
We made some cool videos.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Bunch of videos. They're I think on the Fat Records YouTube channel. And then we're going to be heading to Europe, playing in Germany and the Netherlands and France and Punk Rock
next
Holiday.
month.
Yeah, so we'll be heading out in July and coming back sometime in August. So we're doing around there. And then I think there's got a couple other things in the work, as well as just working on some new music too.
Yeah, we got a bunch of videos out there, and we got more coming. There's another one that's almost done, and then we're going to get right back on it again. Videos.
And also, guys, obviously I know how to follow you on social media, but for the individuals that actually aren't that social media savvy, how do they actually go about following Cigar across all social media platforms?
I think, let's see, is it Cigar the Band? I think Instagram is our primary source of social media. Yeah, Cigar the Band on Instagram, and then we have, I think, just Cigar on Facebook.
I think that's right.
I think we have a TikTok account too, but I don't know if we use that very much.
There's some shit on there. Have we been cursing the whole time on the radio?
We're actually uncensored, man. So, you know, I look at it like this. If you have a punk rock station, you can't really censor it. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
punk rock is pretty much against censor. So how can you have a censored radio station when it's punk rock? That's just my honest opinion.
Fair point.
Right.
That works.
But I got to say, first and foremost, guys, thank you so much for just coming together and just, you know, giving not only myself, but the radio station airwaves a bit of your time, especially when you guys just got done a long Canadian tour. I know you guys are tired, but thank you so much for your time, man, and just speaking with myself and my station and just telling us all these amazing stories. And, of course, what is next for Cigar? I'm super stoked.
Nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You are most certainly welcome, guys. But I got to say, for now, definitely have yourselves a phenomenal night. Hopefully down the line we can make this happen again sometime soon. But also, definitely have safe travels over there in the UK. And I hope that tour, I hope every single show on that tour is sold out completely and you guys come home safely and, of course, happy as well.
Well, thank you. I hope you're right about that.
Hey, you're most certainly welcome, guys. Thank you so much again, and definitely have yourself a kick-ass night.
All right.
You too,
Thanks so
man.
much. Bye-bye.